great way for a delighted John Cleland to start the new season. Second on the grid, first in the race. That'll do nicely. Another 18 left, and will Rydell bog down in the Volvo again? We'll soon know. And the answer is no.
We need to work harder. It's not good enough. 2 engines in 2 races. Not acceptable. The team must push harder. Today, my radar engines must stop blowing up. I'm trying to build a championship.
John Cleland is sandwiched between the 2 BMWs and going for first, says John Cleland. Oh, Matt Neal sideways, championship leader, entering trouble sideways, he gets it back again. It's Plato and Matt Neal, side by side.
I'm going to rip your face off. You know what that? I'm going to rip your Hey! What are we doing here? Is this stock car racing or is this motorsport? The man's an animal.
And Colin Turkington is going to become the champion for the 3rd time in his career with 1 race to stand.
Hi again, everyone. Welcome to a brand new episode of Reverse Grid, the unofficial BTCC podcast. Chris Tetroblay here in one of the hot seats, and with me in the other, as ever, Lee Tilston. How are you doing, sir?
Hi, Chris. I'm good, thanks, mate. Are you?
Good. Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad.
Hope the listeners and viewers are all good.
Yeah, everyone out there. It's been quite a, I'll say a bit. The last sort of week or so has been a bit busy in terms of things going on. So thanks for the guys who are keeping the groups going. Kevin Whitewood, as ever. Your group is probably my main source of information, so cheers for keeping that going. And we're heading into the penultimate weekend. It's been another break. It's kind of a bit of a I hate this time of year really, because it's really sort of stop-start with BTCC in a way, but we're getting there, and a very exciting few weeks ahead, I think.
They seem to bring the breaks, so seem to come at the wrong time as well, don't they? When we had glorious sunshine, and obviously the football was having a bit of an international break. You would have thought it would have been the perfect weekend to sort of capitalise on
that's it.
Maybe the football crowd not being there,
and to interrupt the momentum a little bit. My wife actually asked me earlier on, she said, why do they do these long breaks? I'm not sure. Really, I think mid-season makes sense, but then why there's the extra few weeks between?
I remember back in the 90s, they used to always say that they tried to avoid big events, so it used to be a case of cramming everything in the summer, and obviously the season didn't run as late. So it didn't really clash with the football for that long. And obviously, if there was a World Cup or something on, that's when they'd have the month's break, or Wimbledon or something. But yeah, they missed a bit of a trick, I think, really, by having this extra week's break when they perhaps should have timed the calendar to fit in 2 weeks ago when Silverstone, when obviously there was no football on. But,
But hey ho, we're here. So we'll chat in a second about some of the main stuff that's been happening since we last met. But the main reason we're here, the main topic of discussion, it's gonna be a good one this week, is both of us bringing to the table our 5 favourite BTCC motors. And this has got nothing to do with which are the best ones, the highest performing ones. These are just good memories. So it's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. So
I'll let you get us going on that one, Chris.
I will in a bit. Let's talk about what the what's been going on sort of in the last couple of weeks and sort of heading into Silverstone. There's not been masses going on in the BTCC world. I think the biggest one, Bobby Thompson, welcome back after your slightly extended break.
That's it. It's the obituaries all was written out at the midway through the season, and now with Lazarus, he's back in the championship, so probably not lost too much ground either.
No, and I must admit, in these breaks where there's not been a hell of a lot to talk about, I suppose there's always team hard. let's be honest.
Well, he's missed 3 meetings, but when you think about it, Dan Camish has missed 1 anyway, and he's never left the championship. So
exactly. So it's like there's been discussions about who's going to be there. There's still debate about Nick Hamilton. I take it he has parted ways with the team. I don't know if you.
It has. It's been made official. Yeah.
Right,
that got confirmed. Probably maybe just before Donington, or maybe it was just
Okay.
after. I can't remember, but
Which is a real blow. I mean, I know, you know, he was always sort of at the back of the pack and that, but it was really good to see him out there, I think, to be honest. And sort of
well, he was having one of his better seasons this season, wasn't he? I mean, even not just the sixth place at Donington, but he didn't seem to be in as many scrapes as what he was. There was a period for a couple of years where he seemed to be every race he'd be off
Yeah.
at some point. But through bad luck or whatever, but that didn't seem to be happening this season. He seems to be quite consistent.
Let's not forget Donington. I mean, riding on a high, you know. But you know, people as well. Is Rob Huff back? I think he is official. He is going to be there for the last 2 meetings. I think Rob Huff.
Is he?
As far as
I haven't seen anything. So is Bobby Thompson replacing somebody else? Is he coming in?
This is the thing. Nobody really knows what car he's going into, because obviously Nick Hamilton's one will have been modified. I mean, how easy it is to kind of undo that, I'm not sure, but I really don't know. I have lost track.
I assumed he was. I mean, I did read the article, but it didn't say anything in there, did it? But it didn't say anybody was leaving either. So it didn't say that Darrell de Leon's out there or anything like that. So I just assumed he was taking Nicholas Hamilton's seat, but then I have seen the Rob Huff rumours. But
everyone seems to be fairly certain Rob Huff. It was announced earlier when he was coming back that he would do that one meet, and then he wouldn't be there the next, but he'd be back for the last 2. So I think that's okay. Remains to be seen. I mean, I've seen nothing else to the contrary, but I mean, bless him. It's a little bit of consistency wouldn't go amiss, I think. I suppose Team Hard have got that again. They got Bobby Thompson back, but it just seems a bit like every time we have a meeting, there's a change. But, you know, it'll be good to see him back anyway.
Yeah. He probably shouldn't really been out of a drive, should he? So.
No, I mean, it looks like, I know it's financial, wasn't it? But it looks like there's been some agreement reached by both parties to be able to bring him back. So to me, that kind of reeks of, you know, Team Hard desperately needed someone in, you know, to fill a gap, and, you know, they knew what they'd lost. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
You know,
who knows?
But
whether it's got something to do with Nick leaving,
it could
I'm
be.
not too. Yeah.
Who knows? But let's just enjoy the fact that he's back. It'll be good to have him back on the grid.
Yeah.
So other headline this week, you know, sadly, it was announced the passing of Dan Kirby, who I must admit, I think he was in BTCC when I was not during the years that I wasn't watching it as much, so I wasn't that familiar with him. But I know by all accounts, he was a bit of a presence in the paddock. So a bit of a loss there. So that was sad news, that one.
Yeah.
But in terms of Silverstone, what can we expect? What do you reckon? You know, off the top of your head, what are you going to expect?
The question is Ash going to get it wrapped up this weekend before Brands Hatch, or is it going to go down to the finale? I've got a feeling it'll still go down to the finale, even if it's something like he only needs, 5 points or something on the loss.
Yeah, I haven't. I usually can pick up on things that are being said around, mathematically what can happen. Not seen a lot being bandied around about this, that he could wrap it up. Yeah. So I think it's probably still too much of an outside chance. But you're right.
Do you remember 2008 when there was a similar sort of gap between Giovinardi and Jason Plato? It went to the final meeting, but I think, you know what? I think both of them actually suffered a nightmare on the final meeting, unless it was the final race or something. But Giovinardi had such a big lead; it was like a foregone conclusion already. And it could be something like that again. I think
it might be. I mean, like you say, if he, I doubt he's going to wrap it up at Silverstone. But if he does, I don't think it'll be the last race. I think it would be probably, could well be race 1 at Brands that he's got it. Which I like it going down to the last one, I must admit, but it's just a testament to what he's done, I think, if he does it earlier. So.
Yeah, it would be, but I think as well, I saw somebody say on social media that if it was wrapped up before then, it could be an interesting final race, because there'd be not much at stake. They might just go out there and just race.
Yeah, which we don't feel
nothing's
like
on the line, which we don't often get to see, do we?
No. No, I've been.
So that could be quite interesting and something a bit different.
It could be, yeah, and it's sort of seeing it could be like the final, not final sign off, but a final kind of hurrah for some of these guys who
Yeah.
probably have missed out a little bit more this season. I mean, the third race, I always quite look forward to each of these meets because you never really know what's going to happen.
No.
But especially, yeah, but yeah, Silverstone kind of feels to me like it's a bit of a transitional one, isn't it? It's kind of like we all want to see the action take place, but the focus is on what's happening with the championship, and I don't think it's anything's going to happen this weekend. But
how did it go last season? I've got to be honest, my memories escaped me there.
I remember. Obviously, Tom Ingram wrapped it up on the last meet. It went down to Brands. I can't remember if it was race 2 or race 3, though. I have a feeling he went into race 3 knowing he had won it.
I was thinking more about Silverstone last year.
Silverstone can't. Yeah, I can't remember, to be honest with you.
No, I can't. I really can't. No, my mind's gone a blank.
Take a step back in the time machine for that one. No, I certainly.
I can't even remember who won the races. I was just trying to think how the Fords performed last.
Tell you what,
last season, and who maybe just with an eye on and who could be one to watch this season. But I've got a feeling Toyota might have had a good day.
They have said, yeah, that Toyota are the ones I think that spotlight are on because they do have traditionally a good showing at Silverstone.
Yeah,
and think it could well be if anyone can achieve something, apart from the top ones this weekend, it could well be them. I'm just trying to find the results from last year. If I can get them, we can have a look. Bear with. Good job this isn't live. Talk amongst yourselves. Why can't I find it?
Well, while you're searching for that, Chris, it could be an idea for me to inform the listeners and viewers of a couple of interesting shows we've got coming up over the next month. With obviously the end of season looming, we're going to be having a big review of not just necessarily of the season, but every driver on the grid is going to get reviewed. We ain't going to be sitting on the fence. Well, I'm certainly not anyway. I'm sure you won't be. So that should be quite an interesting. I'm looking forward to doing that show and getting stuck into the runners and riders of 2023.
Yeah, and including those who haven't necessarily performed as well as we thought they would. There's been a few of those, so that'd be a good one. Yeah. So I have got it here now. So Silverstone last year, Rory Butcher qualified on pole. So there you go. So we are right.
I did seem to, I memory wasn't massive, but I did seem to think of Toyota doing something there. Did they win? Did they win a race?
He did. Race 1, Rory Butcher won it. Jake Hill was second. Adam Morgan third. Ricky Collard was in 8th. So top 10 for the first race. Rory Butcher got second in race 2. So there you go. Yeah,
and won the last race as well. So and Ricky Collard had good pace at Donington, didn't he? So maybe they could be one to watch.
There you go. Rory Butcher got third. He got a podium in all 3 races.
Yeah, so, I think he's historically always done well at Silverstone, hasn't he? I know he's had a one almighty crash as well in that period, but I think he does always seem to have gone quite well at Silverstone.
Yeah. So yeah, ones to watch. There you go. Not ones that we've really sort of talked about as much as the others, I think sometimes is Toyota, but they are always thereabouts.
Yeah.
So yeah, there you go. Qualifying prediction. Are we going to bother?
We've gone this far now. It'd be crazy to
which
one? Anybody.
Which blue and yellow?
I've got a feeling Robo might. I think he's quite fired up at the moment. He was feeling a bit down in the dumps after the last meeting, and I think he feels he's probably got a point to prove. He had bad luck at. Well, quite a few of them have had bad luck, haven't they? Really, I mean, Dan Kramich has had bad luck the last couple of meetings, and so's Robo. So, you can't look far from Ash Sutton, but I'd like to see Robo finish on a high because I think he's had a really good season.
I know you can't do a lot about it in qualifying in terms of team orders and things like that. You qualify where you qualify. We have seen that Napa have really played the team game this year in terms of protecting Mr. Sutton. Do we reckon they're going to be much tighter pack?
Doesn't need much protecting though, does it? It's like trying to protect the Terminator.
Unless something happens, but then again, bad luck. You can't prevent bad luck, and Sutton's had his fair share of that as well. So yeah, we'll see. Any final thoughts on Silverstone before we move on then, sir?
Only that I'm looking forward to it, and it's one of those tracks, Silverstone. It's never been one of those. I mean, I look forward to every touring car, but it's never been something's most exciting of tracks. Without ever being dull, but I quite like the tracks personally with a bit of undulation there, and they're quite twisty. Silverstone's very flat, isn't it? Very fast, but it's very flat. There's lots of very wide track.
I've had so many drivers actually comment on it, and I know I had one of these high-speed passenger experience things at Thruxton earlier this year, and the guy that took me around in a Porsche Cayman said that Thruxton was his favourite track and his least favourite was Silverstone. He said it doesn't work. It's not worth doing unless you're in an F1 car.
Yeah,
so, there you go.
I mean, it's changed quite a lot over the years as well, hasn't it? With whenever you watch some of the '90s stuff, it's things like the S's was quite a good part of the track at the time. And you had a little straight down to the bridge, didn't you? And that all seems to. I mean, I don't think they even go under that bridge now, do they? I don't know whether they took the bridge down or whether they've just modified the track a bit. But there's a good half of the track where it's almost unrecognisable. The only bit I really recognise of Silverstone is that sort of last little complex there, where John Cleland and Steve Soper had their famous coming together, and there was right down to that first corner, Cops is sort of the only bit that seems to have really stayed the same. But it'd be rude, I think, to get to Silverstone and not evoke memories of obviously 1992, which is the most iconic touring car moment, arguably, isn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been looking back on 2013, my season of choice, in the last couple of weeks. And they make reference to it there. And I'm watching that season. That was the first full season I experienced. Second season, I was kind of into it, but the first one I saw from the beginning. And you still had elements of the real kind of, paint scraping, elbows out, driving.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say it's all down to Jason Plato, but you got to think whenever he was around, there was an element of that, and there was plenty of it then.
And Matt Neal,
and Andrew Jordan as well. I forgot he was really, he was not averse to.
He was like an old head. He was like an old head. Andrew, when he came in, wasn't he? He was only 18, and he raced like he'd been in touring cars all his life. So I mean, you miss those types of drivers, I must say. I mean, I think it's something that we've talked about slightly. Is obviously maybe, and it's something that's been going around on social media, but the championships maybe not being as entertaining this year, and I know a lot of people don't like the idea of the real Rubbins race, and it winds some people up, that expression. But I just think to an element that was the case, and it was almost an art. While there was an art in setting drivers up and making a move, making a pass, there was also an art. There was so many drivers like Anthony Reid, Matt Neal, Jason Plato, where they knew how to take a touch.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. They would almost drive expecting it, and there's so many times you'd see fantastic car control. They would keep it on the track, and it was almost like tit for tat. You'd get a little nudge at one corner, the other one was going to go through, and whoever had gone through, he knew there was going to be one coming at the next corner, and vice versa. And I think that was all fair and love and war. The expression is, I think we've lost a bit of that, but that's something that we've sort of talked about in recent weeks, and
maybe that's
we'll
what
do again.
Tracks like Silverstone, to bring it back to that, tracks like Silverstone, which topographically, geographically, however you want to say it, the makeup of the track doesn't lend itself to as many dramatic moments or exciting driving. We're missing that style of driver to make it more like that. Is that what we think the competition is lacking?
Possibly. I just think a lot of it's that the powers that be, the real changes, which like I say, I've ranted about it on here in recent weeks, but I just think it needs a real reset over the winter with some of these track limits and driving standards, and you don't want people being punted off left, right, and centre. But yeah, people need to realise that there is a difference between tin tops and single seaters, and there's some people who can't stand touring cars and tin tops because it's too rough and it's this, that, and the other. There's some people who can't stand single seaters because it's boring, it's dull. They're both motorsport, but they're totally different, and it seems to me that they're trying to sort of police it all the same. And I think you've got to look at them as different entities, really.
Too right.
I personally think they had it right for decades. You know, you were always getting scraping and nudging.
Yeah.
It wasn't often a driver would get completely banned or something like that. So I don't know why, but it's gone too far, I think, now. And
some kind of shake-up is needed somewhere.
Yeah, because TCR is looming.
That's the rumor? Is again? I hadn't heard that. I know you say you've heard that sort of batted around, but you know, would make sense. Would make sense. But there we go. That's a topic for another day.
Yeah.
Cool. What are we here for? We're here for our five favorite cars of all time that have been within BTCC. So plain and simple, we both bought 5. We're going to take turns. We're going to discuss them. Anything you remember, really, this is just tied into memories. I've written down a few facts beside mine, which might be quite interesting to mention, but really they're just down to what evokes the best BTCC memories.
And so how far back are you going? Have you got any from the 80s in there?
I have.
Right.
So, and these weren't as I've said before, I properly got back into it 2012. So any cars that I picked before that, they're either ones that I've kind of rediscovered for myself whilst I've been delving back, or they're ones I kind of vaguely remember from back then that I have got some kind of affinity to for one reason or another.
Yeah.
So yes. So do you want to go first?
And we're gonna go. We're not just picking the best 5 cars. We're picking. It's just cars that you might like, the model or the colour scheme or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Just it could be whatever reason that we've decided to go with. Our favorite ones. Yeah, I didn't want to get bogged down in too many. Statistically, this one was better than this one. No, that's for somebody else or for another show down the line if we want to get technical. But
I'm going for livery. I'm going for livery rather than drivers or rather than the model.
Okay. I've got a few of those, so that's cool. That's fine. Right. Do you want to kick off? Do you want me to kick off?
You can go first.
I'll go first. Okay, cool. Now I have done this in no particular order except for the last one. I've left my absolute favorite till last.
Right.
So the one I'm going to kick off with is the Rover Vitesse SD1, which pretty much dominated sort of the mid 80s. It's the one that kind of took over from the Capris, I think, their dominance, and then the Rovers had their spell before the Cosworth.
Steve Soper drove one, didn't he?
All the greats did. Andy Rouse, Steve Soper. Yeah. I mean, at one point there was probably as many Rovers on the track as there were in the height of the Cosworths, where everyone had one. They became that machine. The one particular one I have picked is the one that was driven by Andy Rouse, which he had his ICS. I can't remember the full industrial something service. I can't remember the full name of the sponsor, but the ICS.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, he had it on his Toyotas as well, didn't he?
Yeah.
In the early 90s. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a nice blue one. It's from 1984, so it was the year I was born. So when I again started going back into my history and I first discovered this car, there was a guy that lived around the back of where I grew up who had one back in the day, and I remember for years I remembered these massive Rovers. And I couldn't remember what they were. And it wasn't until I started picking up BTCC again, or the British Saloon Car Championship as it was back then, that I saw them. And I was actually able to find out exactly what they were and why I had this connection with them. Because I think I must have seen them racing back in the day when my dad used to watch it. And but yeah, it was a beast. It was you get so many great livery. I think Jerry Marney, I think, possibly had one with Listerine on it, or it might have been someone else. I may have got that wrong, but there was one. There was a green one with Listerine plastered all over it, and they were just, yeah, they were just great machines.
Yeah.
Couple of facts I've got written about them here. So Andy Rouse won the 1984 title in this particular one that I've picked. In that season, he won 7 overall and class wins out of 11 meetings, so he was pretty dominant in that car. Overall, there were 39 wins for this particular car whilst it was in BTCC. And 1983 season, which is when Steve Soper, in theory, won the title, but then had to kind of hand it over. He that season, every single round was won by the Rover SD1. That's my pick for first.
Good choice, very good choice, and nice to see. Nice to see you picking something from pre-Super Touring as well. I'll be honest, all mine are sort of Super Touring onwards.
That's cool.
I'm going to start with number 5. It's actually quite a recent one. I was quite torn between which car to pick because they both had the same livery and they were on different cars. I think with back-to-back seasons.
Okay.
And it's I think it was 2013, 2014. I don't know if you want to, if there's any, and the first year it was on an Audi, which looked absolutely stunning. And then the next year it switched to a Mercedes, which again, now I don't know whether it was the car, but they were both great cars as well. So, but I think if I had to pick,
I know which one. Yeah, is this the
the Wix?
Yes.
Yeah.
Black and yellow.
And I'm gonna go for the 2013 Wix Rob Austin Audi.
That's Sherman.
Sherman.
Yes.
Which was an amazing looking livery. It reminded me of a NASCAR.
Did.
The livery, the kind of way it was, it just
really
and the
did.
size of it as well. It just looked like a NASCAR.
Yeah, and I remember you saying actually, yeah, when it swapped, because I think it was Adam Morgan then swapped that. He took that livery, didn't he? When we got the Mercedes A class when that.
Yeah. And
I remember looking at it. I was thinking,
with like a flame on it. Then.
Yeah, I was thinking that shit up that is, looking car even on the A class.
There's been some lovely Audis. I mean, obviously, I'm an Audi driver myself, so I've got a soft spot for Audis, and I was tempted. I was torn between obviously the Frank Beeler, John Bincliffe Audis, with just a simple 4 rings on. They were stunning.
Yeah,
I loved Rob Holland's Audi S3. Do you remember that in 2014? It was like a metallic blue.
Vaguely, I was watching it then. Yeah,
He was near the back. It was one of the best looking cars I've seen, and very, very, it was very, very. It's tough to pick. I think because I didn't want to just pick 3 Audis in my top 5, so I went for one. I've gone for Rob Austin's Wix Audi as my number 5.
I like it, and again, since I'm watching,
and I'm counting down as well. Order.
Oh, you have? Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, I think subconsciously I possibly have. It's just I think it was little between them, except for, like I say, when we get to the top one. Unless you've already picked it, that'd be funny, wouldn't it? If we do end up picking.
It'd be interesting to see if we have any of us have got the same cars in the top 5.
Yeah. So my next one then, and this for people that know me is probably not going to be that much of a surprise, but I have picked the Vauxhall Cavalier from John Cleland's 1995 winning season. Plain and simply, I was brought up with Cavaliers. For some time I thought they were the only car in the world, because my dad, my uncle, my granddad, they all had Cavaliers, and I'll never know which version it is, that mark wise, the longer version that like John Cleland was driving that year, but that is what I remember my dad driving for most of my childhood. And I think, I must have seen the fact that touring cars were on TV when I was a kid, and there was a Cavalier racing around the circuit. So when I've obviously gone back, I love John Cleland as well. I've said that before. Yeah. And I think that season was fantastic to see him win in that. And it was the last year that Cavalier was running before they swapped to the Vectra. So it was
one of the best ever. One of my favourite seasons, 95.
Yeah.
That was the first season we went and watched touring cars.
Yeah.
Didn't really get into it till the following year, but we went to both the Park meetings. And got the season review, and I've probably watched that season review more times over the last 28 years than any
It's
other
a good one.
season.
It is a good one. Yeah, and I think that's a perfect swan song for it, really.
Yeah,
I was never as big a fan of the Vectra. Typically, it's the same car pretty much. I just don't know. I never really thought it looked as special or as nostalgic as the Cavalier. But an interesting point I found out while sort of swatting up on this is actually not with this model, not with this particular car, obviously, but Vauxhall in 1992. When Tim Harvey won the championship, Vauxhall actually pipped BMW to the Manufacturers' Championship with a Cavalier.
yeah.
Wasn't aware of that. It's,
Yeah, but they were quite consistent with, well, all season, weren't they? Jeff Allen had a really good season, had about 92 and 93. And obviously John Clellan was always up there.
yeah,
Whereas I think, but to be fair to the BMW, I think Super was only doing selected races, and they didn't really come good till about quarter way through the season, maybe
right.
halfway through the season. So whereas Vauxhall had that consistency all the way through.
Yeah, yeah. It's one season I've got the footage for. I haven't delved into that one yet. It's one I'm really looking forward to kind of finding. I know the key points, obviously, like the typical, towards the end of the season, what kicked off there with Clellan to the Soper. Already know about that. But,
Yeah.
yeah, and just a Vauxhall man through and through. So there had to be a Vauxhall in there, and I think across the board, when you're thinking of the Astra now, I think, which is really impressive what Power Max are doing with that, the Vectra and previous Astras and that, the Cavalier would always win out. So there you go. What's yours?
Well, number 4 for me, and it's again just a personal choice. I had 2 of these cars, and it's the Peugeot 306, and I've gone for the lime green, yellowy sort of Alan Morrison one that he won Class B with. I absolutely love those 306s so much that I'll say that I brought 2. So
I think
not at the same time, but
we possibly discussed this between ourselves in the past, and that when
I think we have, yeah.
My last year at school, for whatever reason, had no idea the Peugeot 306 was my dream car. It's what I wanted. I think I just saw one on my way to school every day, and I was like, I love that.
They used to be everywhere, didn't they, on the roads? You always see them now. You very rarely ever see them. They've gradually died off, but you forget how long ago really that they were out. It's over 20 years now. But
I didn't realise until I must have forgotten or just not realised at all until you pointed it out that they were in the BTCC.
Yeah, they've been. I don't think how long they were in it for. They've been in it. Well, they won it in 2000, Alan Morrison. Won it in 2001, Simon Harrison. And Roger Moen was right up there as well.
Yeah.
And then it was still in it, I think, in 2002 and 2003, maybe. When Mark Fullerlove drove one, and Tom Boardman there were so many of them, so many.
Yeah.
I mean, if you were to list all the drivers that drove that 306 in the touring cars, I mean, Paul O'Neill, he made his debut in touring cars in one, didn't he, in 2001?
Wow. Okay.
Will Hoy had his last touring car racing one, and they were brilliant cars. They were so quick, and they won Class B 2 years in a row. They won the National Saloons as well, which was a really good series, and good car and a lot of nice sort of memories personally.
Say what you say about Peugeot. One of our 2 cars is a Peugeot. My wife swears by them. We've each had them probably for the last sort of 10, 12 years. We've had a Peugeot in the house, not literally, obviously, but so I always, one of those I would love to see back.
Yeah,
really, at some point. I think
it's amazing, isn't it, to think that Peugeot. I mean, they say they never won a race, but then it starts getting confusing because Simon Harrison, Roger Moen did win races in that 306 when obviously there were 2 different classes. So technically, it's amazing when you think that Peugeot never won a British touring car race, yet Infinity's won a touring car race, Hyundai's won a touring car race. Some marques that aren't probably as big as Peugeot have won touring car races. Peugeot never has.
No, just obviously not. Whoever's been running them not been invested in enough as the others. It's good pick. I like that. Good pick. My third one, it might seem a bit of an obvious choice. They've got to come on here at some point. I've already mentioned them, but the Sierra Cosworth RS500, dominated.
Yeah.
the late 80s, right at the beginning of the 90s. There were so many livery wise that I loved to see. Again, Andy Rouse, his Caliber one, the blue and white one.
Yeah.
Steve Soper's, was it the Eggenberger one, the black with the Texaco livery on it?
Was that the it had like almost like a mirror kind of stripe down it. It was one of those at the Super Touring event. There was a black Texaco
Okay,
RS500. Yeah, and it had almost like a mirror livery on the side for as a stripe down it. Yeah, which was quite quirky.
I think when you look at those seasons and the fact that every other car on the grid was one of those, I mean, really, it was the livery that separated them mostly.
Yeah.
Do you, just kind of a bit of an aside here, do you think when it gets that saturated with one type of car, does it add or remove something from the excitement?
I personally would think it probably removes, but it was a popular car, that wasn't it? And people who of the time look back with such good memories of it.
Yeah.
So, but I know I personally wouldn't want to see a grid of too many.
No.
I mean, we've got 6 Coopers on the grid now, haven't we?
I know, but thankfully they're not sort of suffocating everyone at the front.
Yeah.
But
who knows? There could be a few more Ford Focuses popping up next year if if they start.
If there is a model that has had the longevity and the competition in recent memory, that the Focus.
Honda's always did the rounds, didn't they? Because Team Dynamics would build them and sell them on.
Yeah.
And brand new to Eurotech, and then obviously the next season when they'd have a new one, they'd also have the older ones to sell on. So there was a while when there was always plenty of Honda Civics on the grid. I just wonder whether that might happen with the Ford Focuses with Napa, motor-based build. It did building them and stuff. So
I'll say the one. This is probably going to be as iconic as those cars are that I've just mentioned. Andy Rouse's and Steve Soper's and that. The one that I've gone with, which is my favourite of the lot, is not necessarily based on livery, but it's Rob Gravitz from 1990, which is probably the most basic livery on the grid because he mostly didn't have massive sponsorship, so it's mainly just white car with his number on the door. That is my favourite season of the Cosworths, and I think what he did to pull that off, and my favourite race of all time at the moment is Snetterton from that year, because the amount of times the lead changed, and I think it must have been getting towards the end of the season where the title was really the title fight was really on, and he's just every corner there's something happened and he managed to come through right at the end and win it, and I thought it was good memories there.
Well, my number 3 is torn between 2 again, but I'm going to go for Rickard Rydell's Volvo 850 from either 95 or 96. It was basically the same livery, wasn't it?
Yeah. That's not the estate one, was it? That was the
saloon. Yeah. First touring car I ever saw win, and I loved that Volvo 850. So but it's quite a simple choice, really. And he was my favourite driver through the Super Touring era. So
there you go. It was a good. I know it. I think they were probably it's a bit of an odd choice to bring Volvo or for Volvo to go into the touring cars. But then I think the year they really made an impact is when they came in with the estate, and people were saying, "What the hell are you going to do with that?" And it was actually quite nippy.
It was.
Yeah.
They had some good results in that estate. I think Rydell and Jan Lammers both had a pair of top 5s, and it was
an all
TWR, wasn't it? Still as well.
Yes, that's it. Yeah, but they came good. That year when Rydell finally got it and proved their worth.
Another great season, 98. Yeah,
good choice. My next pick, you might be one that makes you smile. Hopefully. This one is based on it's the type, the model of the car they used and the livery. This is well up there with one of my favorites. It's the BMW 125 that eBay Motors had from 2013. I've never been a fan of the
Multicoloured
3
one.
Series. Sorry?
So that's the multicolored one, isn't
Yeah.
it? That they, yeah.
Yeah. So I've never been a massive fan of the 3 Series. I think it looks just too cumbersome, especially the ones they're using nowadays. The one in 2012 when I first got into it, it was eye catching because eBay. I mean, just the fact of having eBay on it made it recognizable.
Yeah.
When you got to 2013, they chose the 1 Series. They looked just more deadly. It's a lot quicker, and that livery where I'd like the black, black, green, yellow, red, all of that all over it. And it's a year Turkington came back as well.
Yeah, it was.
I didn't know who he was at the time. I knew he came obviously, as a former champion and that, and I had no idea he'd still be sort of doing it even today, And but yeah, something about that car. And when you put out, I think on the Facebook page the other day with Rob Collard's incidents the following year, that's etched in my head as well because it was one of those. And
I couldn't believe how long ago that was. To be fair,
I know. Yeah,
it didn't feel. I thought it was only about 5 years ago or something. It was quite scary to think that it was nearly a decade ago.
Yeah, that was scary. I mean, I remember watching that on TV. It's probably the biggest crash I'd seen for BTCC while I've been watching it.
Yeah, I think isn't that when Ricky Collard first came in? Didn't Ricky finish the season because Rob was injured?
You might be right. Actually, yeah.
See again, I remember that, and it just doesn't see. It doesn't seem nearly 10 years ago when Ricky filled in for his dad again. I would have, unless he did it again, maybe a bit more recently. But yeah.
No, there was another reason I put the 125 in there, the 1 Series, and eventually because I made note of it, they kept running with the 1 Series until 2019.
Yeah.
And when they switched back to the 3 Series, is in 2017 I got a BMW 1 Series, and I felt like I was kind of part of the crew there.
King of the road.
Yeah. So it's like I wasn't a BMW supporter at that point, but it was like I got a car that's on the grid kind of thing. Not quite that spec, but made me feel good. So there we go. That's my number 2. So we're getting towards the top.
So my number 2 is Dave Pinkney, 2006 Honda Integra.
Okay.
And if we're going to go specific, you might have seen it where it was black and it had like a pink stripe up it. But there's a meeting, I can't remember which one it was, where he ran it with pink alloy wheels. And it looked amazing with those those pink alloy wheels on it. Looked absolutely fantastic.
I've got it up here now. Yes, I know the one you're on about. That is quality. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was just that Integra was a gorgeous looking car anyway, wasn't it? And I loved it in the Halfords design, but when Pinkney came in that black and pink car, it was something else. And I was a big Pinkney fan as well. So
looks like something Bertie Bassett would drive.
Yeah. It does,
it looks cool. No, that's very cool.
It's a good character, Pinkney.
Yeah. That's a good one. Oh, there we go. Okay. So the moment of truth now. Our top picks. Again.
While you're going, I'm just going to put the light on because otherwise I'm going to be in complete darkness in a minute.
No worries, mate. We don't want that. So this was the one out of my batch, which I said was always going to be number 1 for me. And it is, again, livery, yes. Driver, yes. Nostalgia, yes, because it was the year that I started watching. And this was the first year that I became a Jason Plato fan. So this is always going to be top of my list. MG6 that KX Momentum 888 had that year. I just loved everything. The fact that it was an MG, going back to my childhood, my cool uncle that I had, I've still got, although probably not as cool. Sorry. He had an MG Maestro, I think it was, if I get that right. Red and black MG Maestro. Absolutely loved it. He had the sports cars of the family, so he had a Calibra when it came out as well. So there was that. So the fact that there was an MG on the grid and Jason Plato was driving it.
Yeah.
The livery.
So was that the light blue one, or was that the red and black?
The red, the black, the green. So it's specifically the 2012 one. I mean, obviously, it's still a decent car in 2013. I didn't feel like it was as striking, to look at. because it was mostly white, pale blue, and that. But no, when they first introduced it, the red, blue, black livery and that on it, it was
Yeah, because when we were at Donington a few weeks ago, and somebody had done a road car up in the MG of that, and it was the light blue, the sort of white and light blue version.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it was. I mean, they'd every attention to detail was on it. Cool. Placer's name on the side. Even had a private reg saying Placer, I think, or something like that. Yeah, if I'm dedication. So certainly a big fan. But yeah, it looked smart.
Fair play, that man. But yeah, that's he had. I mean, looking back on those years as well, it's a shame he didn't get to win the title in it, really, because he was quite close those couple of years before then. I think he had 3 years in the MG, and then he went over to BMR.
He's worth a podcast show one time, I think. Jason Placer.
Absolutely, yeah. It's got to happen.
A legend of the sport. He was never my one of my favourite drivers, if I'm honest. But I never really had a problem with him either. And then he was always great value, wasn't he? And he was always entertaining to listen to. And he's cracked me up with a few of his stories. You can tell a good story.
Yeah.
And just a legend of sport. He's worth a podcast special one day.
We'll do some of these driver spotlight ones, and he for sure.
Yeah.
Have one. So there we go. That's mine. It's got nothing to me can beat that MG6 snigger, if you will, because it became a little bit of a almost like a throwaway thing. I think by the looks of it, there's a few of the independent teams, still had them going up to maybe a few years ago or something. But like Josh Cook, Ash Sutton, and that have been out in them, so it can't be.
That's right. Yeah. Mark Hines as well, didn't he? Had a season in one.
I wasn't familiar with that one. Was that? No. That might have been the years that I was kind of in purgatory. But yeah, decent enough car. So who have you got then? I'm really intrigued.
So my number one is it's a Renault Laguna, and I was torn between two liveries again, and it was either the yellow and blue one from '97, but I had to go for the Nescafe one in '98.
Yeah,
that dark green one was just gorgeous, and even the '99 one, which had less sort of stickers on and everything, and it just looked great, just with very little sponsorship on it. But that '98 one, I think, and again that was at Brands Hatch in July, and just having a close look around it, and that was.
So we're not too far here from Haynes Motor Museum. I've taken my kids there a couple of times last year, and in the reception bit, they have got Jason Plato's one of those.
Actually. Oh, the '98,
yeah. Is that the one who raced with number 3? That's
number 3 was, yeah.
Yeah, they've got that there. I'll send you a pic. Actually, I've got me and the kids in front of it. Oh, good call. Yeah, I didn't even think of that one, but yeah, that's a classic one.
And again, so you see, Renault were never my favourite drivers or anything on the grid, because I was always a Rydell fan, so they were kind of like his rivals. But it's definitely one of those cars, and it still looks great now.
Yeah.
Those Renault. I think that Renault Laguna has probably aged better than any car from that era.
Yeah, love to see that have a good run out against some of the ones from today. Obviously, under the bonnet, it's probably not as impressive.
No,
machinery wise, but
yeah.
Cool. Well, there we go.
I can't believe it. We've done this show, and the top 5, and I mean, what car? I think there'll be a few listeners might be screaming out that we've not picked the Rapid Fit Ford Mondeo. Didn't get a shout out.
No, that's
the Alfa Romeo.
No. Well, there you go. It's just our picks. I kind of felt a bit cliche putting the Cosworth in there, but I do like looking back to those years and seeing what they, it may have got a little bit boring seeing them all, all the track filled with them, but it's good memories there. But yeah, I mean, anyone watching this who disagrees or has your own pick, comment on.
That's it. It's kind of what memories, what they bring to you, isn't it? Like I say, we could easily have sat down and picked the 5 of the greatest touring cars of all time, and it would have been totally different. But we've gone for things, and I've certainly myself have gone for nostalgic. For driving a car that won its first race. I've gone for a car that I loved so much. I own 2 of them,
Yeah.
One that was one of my favourite drivers, Pinkney. So there's all sorts of different reasons, really. So
And that's what makes it
get
great.
in the comments and let us know what your favourite livery or favourite cars were from the Super Touring.
Yeah.
Or
And the
touring
reasons
car.
why. Everyone's got a reason why.
Yeah.
You know, that's what makes this good. We could sit here with all the figures to say what the greatest cars are, and there'd be plenty of people actually willing to debate that. You know, so yeah, these are topics that I really like getting into. So I'm glad we did this one. So
We'll put a post up on the Reverse Grid Facebook page, I think, of the choices, and try and get some comments added to it.
Yeah. Just trying to evoke some discussions.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, thanks again, Lee. As ever, this has been great.
Pleasure, Chris.
In for a good weekend, and then by the time we meet the next time, we'll be looking forward to what will be the finale of the season itself, and you know, be good to see what we crack open and what that's looking like. So till then, mate, take it easy. Have a good weekend,
and you.
I'll see everyone in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Cheers, guys.
Bye.
If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to like, share, and hit the subscribe button. Also follow us on Facebook to keep updated about all future shows.